One little interesting point, though, is Harry told Hagrid about how Snape's been a bit of a dick to him. And then Hagrid said, "Rubbish! Why should he?" And then it says, "Yet Harry couldn't help thinking that Hagrid didn't quite meet his eyes when he said that." Now, that's interesting.
Say that again. That sounded very awkwardly worded, but I don't know if that was just your interpretation.
That was verbatim. "Rubbish," said Hagrid. "Why should he?" Yet Harry couldn't help thinking that Hagrid didn't quite meet his eyes when he said that.
Yeah, no, okay, so that's just bad English.
So is this hinting because Snape was cucked by Harry's dad, his mum?
Oh, maybe.
Because Snape wanted to root his mum, if I remember correctly, but then he got cucked by Harry's dad, who in this case, I mean, you'd call the bull, I guess. And so maybe that's hinting
in this cock and bull story, you'd call him the bull.
Yes.
Snape's I'm surprised the cock, and the dog is still the boar, as far as I can tell.
Correct.
I would have thought Hagrid would just let loose, though, with that. I would have thought he'd just be like, all right, Harry, Snape wanted to fuck your mum. Ooh, I shouldn't have said
that. Well, maybe you should have just given him a heads up, though, that this guy's going to make his life a fucking misery for the next, 6 years at school. Just be like, look, this is the backstory. Maybe not he cucked your mum or whatever Reardon's words were, but still.
Yeah.
Can you
imagine? It's pretty sick. If that is the reasoning, though, because what you're saying makes sense, kind of, but if that's why he's being such a dick to Harry, that's pretty sadistic, right? Because it's like you wanted to fuck his mum, and she doesn't have to fuck you, Snape. The fact that she didn't want to fuck you, that's not on her. Now she's dead because she died in a gruesome death with one of your mates, holding the one that
you
did it.
You contributed to it.
Yeah, you contributed to it. And now the son, you're going to be mean to that's...
The orphan son?
That's mental. That's really mental.
Well, it's toxic masculinity manifest, Andrew, is what it is.
Thank you. Preach.
And you do get, actually, now that I think about it, big sort of incel vibes from Snape.
He's the biggest incel, isn't he?
He's a big incel. And he and you know how incels have that sense of entitlement, over women's bodies and that kind of thing. That's exactly what's playing out here in Harry Potter.
I don't know if it's exactly what's playing out here, but I guess.
So in many ways, JK was ahead of her time before the whole, before 4chan and Reddit and incels.
Well, it is actually pretty true, because if you think about it, right, Snape in sort of Harry era, debatable whether he's an incel, but definitely back in the days of Lily and James, massive incel vibes, desperately wanted to sleep with this woman, was raging and angry about the fact that he didn't get to. So what did he do? He went to extremism, which is a pattern, right? He moved to extremism. He went to the Dark Lord. And now, as a lot of incels want to do, he's taking out his sort of anger and frustration on people that he's in charge of. He's an authority figure now. This is textbook incel, and I have to say it's one of the most accurate portrayals in the J.K. Rowling book.
Of incels?
Of an incel.
So she got incels right. She got minorities wrong. She got homosexuals wrong. She got almost everything wrong. But her portrayal of incels is not only insightful and accurate, but also just so far ahead of its time.
Yeah,
it actually is.
Harry Potter sort of represents the normies, as incels would say. And he's taking his rage out on them. The Chads.
Harry's the biggest Chad of all.
He's a super Chad.
Maybe.
I don't know if that's true, but sure.
So Andrew, are you saying if Snape maybe cleaned his room and walked with his shoulders back and that kind of thing, maybe he would never have gone down that dark path?
That's exactly right. I mean, you got to make lobsters or whatever. You got to be like the lobsters. You got to be the king lobster or some shit. You got to clean your fucking room.
Got to do all that shit. You need a multivariate analysis. We always come back to Jordan Peterson, but he's such a fascinating guy. I just love thinking about
love Jordan Peterson.
I wonder what he's up to right now.
Didn't he have a breakdown not that long ago?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think he's in a Russian rehab center.
I think his like vacuum cleaner broke and he was unable to clean his room for a week and he had a full-on spaz attack.
Dude, do you think what we need to do, and maybe this will play out, we obviously haven't read the Harry Potter series, we haven't read ahead, that's one of our rules, but do you think one of the ways to sort of fix Harry's problem is maybe we need to find Snape a sort of pickup artist book, maybe get him to read one of those
Neil
books
Strauss.
like The Game, or go to like
is that his name, Neil Strauss? I think that's his name.
I'm not sure. But
The Game.
Yeah.
You got to neg, dude.
He's negging the wrong people. He's negging Harry, but he needed to be negging Lily. Calling her fat, undermining her.
Yeah.
Calling her ugly. Making passive-aggressive comments. That's how you get chicks. Chicks love it when you get that. All the women listening to our pod will be writing in saying, that's the sort of stuff we
more
as women
that, please.
love. More,
They'll attest to that.
Please,
Big time.
more of that, please. I reckon Snape's Patronus is that Pepe Frog thing. Because actually the first meme came out of fucking Snape's Patronus.
Now that's interesting because how does Pepe the Frog stack up against our Patroni? Which of course you remember Nathan's... Well, I don't remember actually, so can you remind me?
I remember them all. Mine was a duck, yours was a mule reading, and Nathan's was a wolf.
Well, I really flattered myself with that one. I just think Snape's Patronus just undermines them all. Like with his we can't compete with satire.
We can't compete with
internet culture.
Memes. No, it's the most powerful force.
That's awesome. I just imagine Snape on like 8chan or whatever, just fucking sending hateful memes like between classes. It's honestly, I reckon honestly that this is one of the most insightful things we've ever said on the pod is that Snape's a massive incel.
Well, because I think I always assumed that he was a bit of an emo, mainly down to the fringe, but it's actually darker than that. It
runs deeper than that.
It runs a lot deeper than that. You're right.
Yeah, and emos fuck. They actually do.
Emos do fuck.
I mean, I remember back in the day, all the emo kids at school were definitely the ones fucking.
Emos fuck, and far be it from us, we would hate to conflate emo culture and incel culture. That would be the last thing we want to do on this podcast.
I think they are distinct, though. I think a lot of good music's come out of emos. I fucking love a lot of emo music. I don't know
Is
what
there any
music
good
incels listen
music?
to.
That's a good point.
What's like incel step? I want to... Can some podophiles write in with like what some incel music is? Because surely a few of the people listening to this are incels, and shout
I'd
out
have
to
thought
you.
the majority.
Oh god, I really wanted to be nice to the podophiles this week. We've been so slack lately, and then we just called them all fucking incels. Oh my god.
We've talked about how this podcast is essentially the opposite of having sex. I mean, that is well established.
That's true.
And actually, Andrew, legend says every time someone presses play on the podcast, an incel is born.
An incel gets his wings.
Which is quite ironic.
A virgin somewhere turns 40. Somewhere in the world. So when an incel does get a fuck, do they undergo a sort of metamorphosis? Because you can't really still be an incel.
No, they go through this.
And so what happens to your ideology? Because it's their whole belief system.
I think that's a great point.
That's a great
A
question.
post-cell.
It's a philosophical question because by definition to be an incel, it's involuntary. So it's not you actively trying not to fuck.
No, they have to be
that
trying to fuck.
That's just a cell. So if you're an incel, but you've kind of created this persona, and that's right, all these things around that characterization as an incel, and then somebody was to fuck you, well, I mean, that must be just world shattering.
This is why you can never leave. That's why it's such a cult.
And, geez, okay, you're sitting there like you're on the bed, you're naked, there's a hot girl next to you, you're about to fuck, and that's like Sophie's choice. Like, what do you do?
But it's actually not, because at that point you're no longer an incel, because you're either choosing to be a celibate at that point, which would mean you're not an incel, you're just a cell, totally different, or a volcel.
Volcel, yep.
Whereas, and if you go through with the act, then you're just a Chad, or you're just a normal person.
Wow, and you become an apostate from all your friends.
All your weird incel friends.
And then you have to kind of admit that you were wrong about all of it.
But you get to fuck. So...
Wow, what a bind. I feel really bad for Snape. I think maybe I would take it out on an 11-year-old kid for no reason. Because it's a catch-22.
If you guys are in that situation, would you, have sex and sort of indulge in one of life's greatest pleasures and biological urges, or would you, want to stay true to this bizarre ideology that was made up?
Friends on some internet forum.
It's such a difficult choice. It's hard.
I say though, I think at that point it's too late. At that point, you're no longer an incel, no matter what happens.
Andrew's saying as soon as it's a viable option, it's no longer involuntary.
As soon as the opportunity has presented itself, you're no longer an incel. At that exact point, at that moment.
Shit. Fuck, a lot to think about this pod.